there's an interesting step to this that I left out, and that during all of this 5 months, I couldn't get people to call me back. I couldn't I couldn't have paid anybody to talk to me. It was just felt really lonely. There was an opportunity with the Tennessee Education Lottery. This was the first company that had taken an interest in me, and I was scared. I knew that in August, when they were, or August or September, I knew this economy thing was going to get worse because these groups of unemployed folks just kept getting bigger and bigger. And so I took a job with the Tennessee Education Lottery, and for 3 days. I want to it's hard to describe how that felt. I felt like I was having to sell out. I felt like that, I'm not employable, so I better take a job. Any job's better than no job. So we took this, and I remember the first day I came home, I think I was in tears. And Monica's, "How's your day?" And I'm just shaking my head. And second day I came home, and she goes, "How's your day?" And I shook my head. I was in tears. And it was just horrible. Absolutely horrible. And so we met with Wayne and Weta Holt that Friday night, 3 days into this job, the only job that I'd had an offer and serious interviews. So we talked and we had supper, and I told him, I said, I think I need to resign this thing. I said, this is not for me. And so I knew I gave this thing up. I didn't have a job lined up. So we made the decision together, let's weather this. And it took a leap of faith. And that was even before the Cardinal Health interview. So that was a big step. Big step.
Wow. Amazing to hear some of the, your wife kind of Monica insists that you go to this meeting, and then you end up kind of on a chance interview, and then, it's amazing what God can do with a little something. He can make great things out of it, and certainly glad that you have a job and that's going well. Very good. When did you begin working there?
Started October the 20th.
Okay.
So that was a company in Laverne called Cardinal Health, and start my fourth week tomorrow. So we're glad about that.
That's great. Monica, what else would you add from your perspective on these things? How were you? It had to be tough to kind of be there and be supportive and be strong and tell me a little bit about that.
It was, but that was just the focus, to make sure that you remained positive and that you were always encouraging, because there wasn't really another option. And being that it's what I do for a living, that was somewhat easier. I think generally we would talk about, okay, well, what should we write? How should we do this? And I know the process, and I've worked with managers who take a long time to make a decision, so I understood that it was not him, who was failing. It was just the way the process goes. But, I was fearful. We had talked about that generally in a hiring year, the fourth quarter, it stops because companies run out of budget dollars. So I was nervous on the fact of if we got to October and there were still no offers, it probably wouldn't happen until January. And so that was kind of a fear, but we had talked about some different things that we would do if that occurred. I think plugging him in with the transition group was really big in the Nashville Career Advancement Center, but then also got to see him really shine as a leader, because people would come to him, other job seekers would come to him and say, how do you remain so positive? What are you doing? And so he got to show some leadership skills there and be the encourager to other job seekers.
There's a lot of this subset of society, that there's a lot of folks out there, and they're hurting people. And there's folks that you come across and you're thinking, man, you're going to have a hard time finding a job. In this economy, you're going to have a hard spot. And you've got folks that are so qualified, people with master's degrees, people who have have a nice pedigree of education, and yet, they're not getting interviews. People who've been pharmaceutical sales reps, and all of these folks, this is kind of the great equalizer. Because one thing we share is that we were all getting paid roughly the same. Zero. And so these networking events that we'd go to Panera Bread on Mondays at 9, and I'd meet with some other unemployed folks, and we try to keep them positive. And what are you doing with your time? And what are your efforts? Here's, we've heard of these job fairs, try this out. And so through this, I find that we kind of try to strengthen the other folks that are hurting as well, and made you feel good. And it was an interesting summer. I've a lot of time on my knees. It was really, I remember it was really hard to walk Monica to her car. So she's driving off to work. And it was such and I told her, I said, even I've got a job, but I said, the scars from this thing is still fresh. I said, I think I'm going to be healing from this thing for a very long time. Just because, it's fresh on my mind, and it tells me that nothing is for sure. I was at ComData. I was going to be there for almost seven years, and felt really good. I had a great network at ComData, but you get tossed out, and you realize that there's only one thing that's sure, and that was probably the most important lesson that I've pulled from the summer of enlightenment, is that God is real. God is. That was a problem bigger than me, out of my hands for sure, and I was forced to give it to God. Forced. But what an awesome. I add this to my life, my book of life experiences. Remember that summer in 2008 that was just really tough, but I think God's definitely working in our family, and we found a position, and it's amazing the place where I found employment. There's hurting people there. There's hurting people everywhere, and I think that they're drawn to me, and this is a true ComData. I had hurting people out there were drawn to me, but I found some at the new company too. So it's refreshing.
Thank you guys for sharing. Sure. I know this was a very emotional summer for you guys, and just being able to share that with everybody in here is a blessing. I heard many uh-huhs and I understand out there when you were talking, because that's something that people go through. But when it's you, it's real. It's tough. God's working on you, and I just appreciate you being salt and light where you are, whenever that is, and you're so blessed.
Oh, absolutely.
We don't have that much time, Jonathan. No, I'm kidding. I know he was about to go on another 3-hour. Monica is awesome. She's the best, and she is. She's a good one. Thank you guys for doing that, for sharing with us, and blessing us and closing us out tonight. So let's. You did great. Thank you. Thank you guys.